What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Talking with Beauties episode 142. And on today's episode, we're talking about college football. College football wrapped up its 2024 season. Ohio State hoisting the national championship over Notre Dame. But today, we're not talking about national championship games. We're talking about the best games of 2024 and the 2025 postseason. Yes, I looked at every single game and I have ranked the top 10 games for you guys today. Let's get into a little bit more of the details before we get into the rankings. So there was 1,560 games played in the past season. And yes, I looked at every single game. I looked at ESPN's box scores of practically as many games as I could, went week by week, found out what games I thought were worth writing down, memorable, good games, not blowouts, all this kind of stuff. And of those 1,560 games I looked through, I was able to narrow that down to 64 games. From that 64, that's a lot. I tried my best to narrow those down into, did the game have a top 25 upset? Was there a playoff implication? Was there a top 25 implication, like ranking wise, conference championship, history behind the game and the meaning behind the game? Anything like that I looked into, was able to narrow that 64 down to 53 games. So yes, still a lot of games. How am I going to narrow down 53 games? Well, I took those 53 games, I looked at everything that I just said and rated them on how important all those things were on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being not as important at all, 10 being the most important, top thing, it had everything kind of thing. Of those 53 games, I narrowed that down to 13. I took the top games that were rated 9 and above in my eyes, and that were 13 games. Obviously, needed a top 10. Took 3 of those games out. Those will be our honorable mentions that we'll mention pretty soon. But a lot of games to go through. I try to do my best where it came down to looking at Group of 5 schools, schools that did not make playoffs, schools that did make playoffs. Did I include too much of the same team? Did I not include enough of any of the teams? With 10 games, you're not going to mention every single conference, every single team, obviously. So I tried my best. I tried to take as much bias out of it. I try to look at it as, did the big sports programs like ESPN, Fox, CBS, did they look at that game as a top game? If so, that kind of boosted its rating. How did the media look at that game on social media? Did they think it was a good game? Did they not think it was a good game? Was there a lot of coverage on it? Yes or no? That boosted it up. How were people on actual campuses revolving around the game? I mean, I was at Arizona State this past season. There were some really good games on that campus this year. How did they see that game, and how did they see other games? Because of course we talk about college football every week in class with a lot of my friends. How were we seeing those games, and what was the talk around campus with other teams' performances? All that kind of stuff went into this. So let's get into the rankings. But first, let's look at the first 3 teams that just missed the cut, the honorable mentions. So we'll start off number 13, Week 10's matchup of Ohio State at Penn State. This was a great game, back and forth. Ohio State, Penn State, a lot on the line. Conference championship, top 10, a lot of stuff. Came down to Ohio State winning this one, but just wasn't enough to make it into the top 10. And you guys will see why. A lot of good matchups that just, in my eyes, were a little bit better than this one. Number 12, we got BYU holding off Utah in the Holy War. This was a great Week 11 matchup. It had a lot of drama at the end with a couple plays that were called or not called. AD of Utah coming out, saying a lot of interesting things towards the officiating crew and the conference itself on how they are officiating this. He was fined, a lot of drama behind that. So really good drama, really good game at the end, but just missed the cut, mainly because Utah just was not able to really make much of that moving forward. And it really didn't seize the season from Utah. They were already out at that point. So that's the only reason why that is at number 12. Number 11, we're back to BYU. This time they're hosting Kansas. Kansas knocking off BYU. They were undefeated going into this game. A lot on the line for them. A top 10 school at the time. Kansas, unfortunately, was not very good at the time. They were 4-6 coming out of Provo in that one. So that is really the only reason why I took it out of the top 10. It was a very good game. Jalen Daniels played well. Not as exciting of an offense. Really good defensive game overall for both sides. So I took it out mainly because Kansas not as highly remarked at the time, not as exciting as an offense and defense ratio compared to a lot of these other teams that had games that were unreal. So that just misses the cut. That is at number 11. All right, let's head to number 10, where we had one of the biggest upsets of the whole college football season. Northern Illinois versus number 5, Notre Dame. Yes, Notre Dame hosted this game week 2 of the college football season. A lot on the line for Notre Dame, to be honest. NIU coming in this one knowing that they shouldn't be winning this game. Not much expectations here besides coming off a win. Why not? Let's go 2-0 against a big Fighting Irish squad. For the Irish, coming off a big win, top 20 win on the road against Texas A&M. Looked really good coming into this one. Probably should win this one, go 2-0, and really kind of staple themselves as a top 10 school and potentially playoff school even early in the season. But NIU had other plans. Ontario Brown, his name was called multiple times, and he came to play. 20 carries, 99 yards, 2 receptions, 126 yards, 1 touchdown. Only that 1 touchdown for Brown, but he played lights out. But the defense for the Huskies was the big factor there. 2 big sacks from O'Malley, interceptions from the defense. Really, honestly, staled out a lot of the drives for the Irish, and it came down to the Irish just not being able to move the ball. Riley Leonard, 163 pass yards, 2 interceptions, 16 yards on the ground, and only 1 rush. He really does, as you've seen all season long, really like to use his feet. Notre Dame likes to go around his feet. He was not able to rush very well. NIU shut him down. We were able to shut down Jeremiah Love for the most part, and it really came down to an awesome defensive performance by the Huskies just to whittle down the clock and bleed it down, and Notre Dame just could not find it. Tried a 62-yarder to win it at the end, put a lot of drama on the line there as NIU did score the drive before to take the lead 16-14. 62-yarder attempt blocked by NIU. They go home back to Northern Illinois with a huge win and the biggest win in their franchise their program history. Excuse me. This was NIU's first non-conference victory versus a ranked opponent since 2003 when they played number 21 Alabama. Plus, it was their first win against a top 10 opponent ever. So a lot of history on the line here for NIU. It's going to go down as one of the best upsets. And if you were able to witness that back in week 2 of the regular season, congrats, because that was one of the best games that I saw when it came to upsets. NIU just outplaying Notre Dame all over the ball. So congrats to NIU and making the top 10 of the college football games for the 2024 season. All right, let's head to number 9, where we had the ACC championship game, number 17 Clemson versus number 8 SMU. This matchup, personally, did not see coming whatsoever. Preseason, I don't think a lot of people saw it coming. I think Clemson was one of those teams that a lot of people just kind of figured it was not going to work this year. And SMU being a newcomer, not a lot of expectations of them making the championship game. But both teams beat all the odds. Miami comes into the last week against Syracuse. They need a win to move into the championship game against SMU. They lose to Syracuse. Clemson gets bumped into the championship game as they're sitting back on their couch waiting for the Orange to win. They got that big win by the Orange, and they move into the championship game. So it set up a title game that most people did not even see going into that final week of the regular season, week 14. But Clemson did not disappoint. Huge first half by the Tigers. They were up 24-7 at halftime, the largest deficit by SMU all season long. Really good performance in that first half. That second half, SMU hit a different switch. That first half for SMU, though, they had a fumble, a punt, interception, missed field goal, a punt to end the drives. not very good. Only 1 touchdown, and that was on their 3rd drive of the game. 3 punts to end the half. That second half, though, they started off with a touchdown, got a punt, another touchdown, another punt, field goal, touchdown to tie it up. 16-play drive at the end of the game to tie it up with not a lot of time left. Really had a lot of good back and forth. Clemson just really was not able to move the ball. A lot of punts for them. But SMU gave Clemson just enough time. Kickoff return to the 45-yard line by Adam Randall of Clemson. He pretty much sparked the win for the Tigers. The next play, 17-yard completion from Klubnik to Antonio Williams down to the SMU 38, which set up a 56-yarder for Nolan Hauser, who missed a field goal earlier in the game, but he didn't miss this one whatsoever. Drills it perfect. Would have been good for probably like 65. He smoked this ball, and Nolan Hauser steals a playoff spot from a potential team like Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, South Carolina, all 4 teams really hoping that the committee was going to get them into the playoffs. Clemson winning that game automatically gets them into the playoffs. They take that 12 seed away from one of those 4 teams. SMU was a potential team that were going to get a bye with a win in the ACC title game. They lost. They move into the 11 seed, had to face number 6 Penn State on the road, ends up not performing well at home against them. Their season was over quickly. For Clemson, on the other hand, they played spoiler. They made the playoffs. Yes, they didn't make it past the first round. They lost to Texas in the first round, but put up a good performance, good offensive performance. And I really do think this game was really good, had a little bit of everything. The tale of 2 halves, a really big kick at the end, a field goal made, playoff implications, top 25 upset, everything that you could ask for. That steals a number 9 spot in this year's top 10 college football games. All right, number 8, we head to week 8, where we had number 5, Georgia versus number 1, Texas. Week 8 brought a highly anticipated matchup between these two. Georgia coming in with 1 loss, Texas undefeated and number 1 in the country. A lot of people had Texas winning this game since they were hosting, and Georgia coming off a loss to Alabama. Who knows what kind of team we're going to see moving forward. It was the kind of game where defense thrived for the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs looked outstanding defensively, 7 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, only 1 interception, but a couple of turnovers due to some strip sacks and some fumble loss by Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. Both quarterbacks were in. Neither were really able to get the ball rolling for either side. The defense lit it up for the Bulldogs. They were able to prevail 30-15 in this one. But why is this game in there? 30-15, not really close. Defensive game, good for Georgia, Why is this game a number 8 on the spot? Well, it comes down to 1 play, and honestly 1 play only. A very controversial thing that we saw. Interception by Texas. They were called for pass interference, so it would have given the ball back to Georgia. Fans on the field are throwing trash onto the field. It took a couple minutes to try and pick up all the trash and everything. Texas was not given any sort of flag for this, for the delay of game, for the trash, any of that kind of stuff. But it gave the refs enough time to go out, talk with one another, pick up the penalty flag that they threw, and give Texas that interception and that return. Not long after that interception, they were able to score on that play. So it did turn out to be a big controversial play that could have changed the impact of that game. Yes, Texas did end up losing 30-15, but for that to happen, to see fans throwing trash on the field and the refs pick up the flag that clearly I thought was pass interference at the time. After replay, it was a little soft, but I still could argue it could be pass interference. Very controversial, a lot of drama, a lot of talks worth after the Sunday and Monday after the game. So that definitely deserves some talk about, and that deserves a number 8 spot in the college football season. All right, number 7, we got number 14, BYU visiting number 21, Arizona State. This was back in week 13 of a very highly anticipated week. Those honorable mention games that we mentioned with BYU in it, those are the 2 weeks leading up to this week. A very close game with Utah, a loss to Kansas, and now Arizona State. This is a very wishy-washy team, if you want to just say that. BYU coming into this game, yes, with the favorites in mind over Arizona State, but BYU coming off a loss, how are they going to respond to this? Are they going to be able to get back into the win, get back into the top spot in the Big 12 championship, and get to that title game? Or the Arizona State Sun Devils going to be able to take that away from them and jump them as one of the top teams in the conference and make it to that title game? Well, Arizona State came into this game, not a lot of talk. I mean, 21 ranked in the country. They are 8-2 going into this game, 5-2 in conference play. Cam Skattebo, one of the best running backs, if not the best running backs in the nation. No one has talked about him yet. Arizona State somehow is in this game. I don't understand how it's possible. Preseason, if you told me ASU was going to have 8 wins, I would have said you're crazy. ASU anticipated to probably have 3-4 wins, maybe lucky if you get 5 wins. They have 8, which is blown out of proportion of what the season predictions were for pretty much everybody. I wouldn't be surprised if even in the locker rooms they didn't expect this much. But they went into this one feeling like it's 1996. And if anybody knows what that 1996 Arizona State season was, that was something special. Probably the best season in ASU football history. That came down to a game at the Rose Bowl against Ohio State. A loss would lose a championship. A win would win the national championship for Arizona State. Unfortunately, they did lose that game in the Rose Bowl, losing the chance at the national championship. But Arizona State, a lot of the same correlations here. A team that's not expected to be good. A team that has a chance to make it to the playoffs. A team that has a chance to make it to the title game. All this stuff, very much of a parallel to 1996. And with one of the biggest games on Tempe's campus since that game against Nebraska in that same season, a lot of anticipation around Tempe. That campus was electric. But for the game, ASU dominated the first half. That first half was all ASU. They were leading big, only gave up a field goal going into halftime, and BYU had to answer. I mean, BYU, if they wanted a chance at playoffs, at the title game, and even just winning this game, they had to come out swinging strong, and they did just that. BYU ended up coming back, forcing the game to only be 5 points, 28-23 Sun Devils. BYU got the ball back. BYU, unfortunately, threw an interception to Javon Robinson. He ran it down inside the 10. So we got first and goal, ASU, inside 2 minutes. What happens? Long story short, ASU is back on their own 50, fourth and goal. They throw the ball up to try and waste as much time. It hits the ground. Clocks hit 0 in the stadium. Fans storm the field. Top 25 upset. ASU looks like they're going to be going to the title game. Hold up. Refs review it. They look at it. They say 1 second left on the clock for BYU. So BYU is now given one more shot at a Hail Mary, which is less than 50 yards away from the end zone, and a chance to go home with the win, a 29-28 win potentially for BYU. But first, they had to get everybody off the field. 15-20 minutes later, we finally get this last play of the game. Jake Ratzlaff throws it down. It's caught about 4 yards short of the goal line. ASU holds off. They win 28-23, and because of all that drama, because we had 2 storm fields, the drama of running backwards like 40 yards, throwing it up, not having all the time expire, all this kind of thing. The tale of 2 halves when it comes to ASU's offense and BYU's offense. This definitely deserves a top spot in the top 10, so it sits right now at number 7. All right, we head to number 6, where we had number 9, Miami, visiting Cal. Cal came into this one with a lot of anticipation. Surprisingly, 3-1 at this point of the year. A lot of buzz going around because College Game Day was at Berkeley for that week. It's the first time ever that they were at Cal, and they did not disappoint. One of the better College Game Day shows of the year. And Miami was a victim of this in the first half. Really bad first half. They were down 25 points at one half in the second half after throwing a pick 6 on the first play of the second half. They came out of the locker room needing to score. They threw a pick 6. Cal was up big, and it looked like all Cal needed to do was continue doing what they're doing. Unfortunately, they forgot that Cam Ward is the quarterback for the Miami Hurricanes. Cam Ward outplayed everybody in that second half. He looked phenomenal, coming back from 25 points down to win it. They scored their last touchdown on the last drive with about 5-6 seconds left for Cal to do anything with it. They were up 39-38, and that was the final of that game. This was the largest comeback victory since the 1999 Boston College Eagles team that came back from 28 points down to win. For Cal, they were supposed to win this game. They would have been their second win against a top 10 school in 21 years. But what a nightmare for Miami to score 3 touchdowns. Not good at all. Very poorly executed ending for Cal. And it ended up really costing them. I mean, Cal wasn't able to do much rest of the year. They lose to Florida State. Florida State gets one of the few wins of the season to them, where it's really kind of just dampened the whole season for the Cal Berkeley Bears. And it overall just not very good, where Miami needed that win. It did come down to them losing to Syracuse last week, but that win did spark something. They were able to go on a hot streak continuing on from the week before, back-to-back weeks with Virginia Tech and Cal, dramatic wins. Overall, great win by Miami. Really good fourth quarter by Cam Ward and the Hurricanes, and this deserves a number 6 spot in the college football season. All right, let's head to number 5, where we head to week 14, where we had Georgia Tech visiting number 6, Georgia. The rivalry week of college football is electric, and Georgia Tech versus Georgia wasn't even on Saturday. It was a Friday night game, and it kicked off the weekend perfectly. This game was electric, 8 overtime game in the old-fashioned hate game, and this was unreal. Haynes King, 303 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns. He also had 110 yards on the ground, 3 touchdowns. Unfortunately, had 1 fumble lost, and that was in the fourth quarter, which cost potentially ice the game. I mean, you don't need a score in the time. Georgia picked up the ball, able to score on the next one and tie it up, and that was able to force overtime. And at the end, Georgia coming out 44-42 win. A lot of back and forth scoring in overtime. But overall, King played unreal. One of the best performances I've seen from a quarterback ever, potentially. Definitely in this game, I don't think there's been a better quarterback performance between Georgia Tech and Georgia. So King is definitely going to be talked about for years to come. And so much on the line for Georgia. Georgia coming in this one, knowing that they're in the title game. It's just who are they going to play, Texas or Texas A&M? Ends up being Texas. But let's just say Georgia loses this game. They go into the SEC championship game knowing that they have to win that game. A loss does not put them a guarantee into the playoffs. So Georgia Tech could have played spoiler in this one. And you know that would have been huge for that program to play spoiler against your in-state rivals like that. So a lot on the line for Georgia. They were able to prevail. It wasn't very impressive overall, but Carson Beck able to make a much better second half for them. Trevor Etienne was not in the lineup for that game, which you could tell hurt them, but the rushing was still there. Nate Frazier did get a touchdown in that game, but not having ETN did make a big factor for the Bulldogs. But overall, what an electric game. 8 overtimes, has to be in the top 10 regardless, and this one took a number 5 spot in this year's season. All right, number 4, we got number 7, Notre Dame versus number 6, Penn State at the college football semifinal Orange Bowl. We finally got a college football playoff game in there, and this game did not disappoint. First half, I will say very slow, 10-3 after the halftime. But that fourth quarter, 31 points total between both teams. And it really did come down to a couple big field goals by Mitch Jeter. The field goal unit for Notre Dame has not been good all season long. They continuously talked about it. Jeter hit 2 for 2 in that fourth quarter. He hit lights out, and it came down to those field goals winning it for Notre Dame. That last one coming off an interception in their defensive zone for Penn State. Drew Allard was inside his 20, I believe, threw a very poor pass, caught, and the drive started on the 40 for Notre Dame. They were able to bleed the clock down very much and had pretty much no time for Penn State to try and come back. They won that one 27-24, get into the title game, and Marcus Freeman made history, becoming now the first Black head coach to coach in the national championship game. So congrats to Coach Freeman there. Coach Franklin again though drops another top 10 opponent loss here, drops to 4-20. So what is moving forward for Penn State? Is Franklin the guy? Is he not? It always just seems like Penn State just can't seem to get over the leap there. But a lot of the line, knowing that winner goes to the national championship game, loser goes home. Both teams coming off of big wins in the quarterfinals. It just a lot of stacking up, a lot of storylines between both. Notre Dame, can they win the big game? Penn State, can they win the big game? So a lot there, but that great fourth quarter being 31 points total, the great battle back and forth between the two quarterbacks had a lot of action in there. So that deserved a number 4 spot in this year's season. All right, number 3, we got number 2, Georgia versus number 4, Alabama. Yes, I know what you're saying. Georgia, again, they have their third time in this. When you have this hard of a schedule and you put up this good performances, you're going to be in my top 10 regardless of who you are, and Georgia just happens to be that team. So yes, it is a little annoying. I put Georgia 3 times in this game, but they played some outstanding games against some really good opponents this year. And there were more games that they played this year that were very good that honestly weren't going to make the top 10. But they had a great season, a very nerve-wracking season if you're a Georgia Bulldog fan. But this one, Alabama hosting Georgia, a lot on the line. Can Kalen DeBoer really harness that inner Nick Saban and leapfrog Kirby Smart? Or is Kirby Smart able to say what's up to the new coach, kick him out of town, and rule as potentially the best coach in the SEC? This game was very lopsided. It felt like two different games. First half was all Alabama. They were up 30-7, even getting a safety before the half was over. Everyone thinking Georgia's not ready for this kind of team. They come out in the second half. They scored 3 touchdowns in the final 9:46 just to stay in it and tie it up, plus also take the lead by 1 point. They were up 34-33 at one point in this game. After they did go up, the kickoff return was not special, but the first play of that play, Ryan Williams, 75-yard touchdown pass. He caught that. He was gone once that thing was caught, and that ended up becoming the game-winning touchdown, 41-34 final for Alabama. They got an interception in the end zone from Carson Beck. So Alabama able to prevail in this one. Why is this game in there? Well, it was because of so much drama. I mean, the idea of Alabama being up 30-7 against a team like Georgia with a new head coach, maybe we're going to see Alabama forever in playoff implications. So everybody thought that. Plus, we have a team like Georgia that everybody thinks is going to be great, not performing very well, yet in that second half, they were a whole different team. A team that, if they keep playing like that consistently, could be the best team in the nation if we're not careful. But with it being tale of two halves, kind of showing sparks of Carson Beck potentially not being the guy in the quarterback room for Georgia, it seemed like there was a lot of underlining storylines that we could see building up for the rest of the season. Alabama came out and lost 2 big games to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. They don't make it to the title game. Georgia loses this one, but runs the table and gets to the title game, wins the title game, gets to the playoffs, and loses to Notre Dame the first round. A lot of things happen moving forward, but this was a great performance. Really, honestly, position both these teams, I think Georgia better to perform very well. Georgia took this loss very well and was able to perform to the best of the performance moving forward. So that deserved a number 3 spot in this year's season. All right, number 2, we have another college football playoff game. We got the quarterfinals, number 5, Texas versus number 4, Arizona State. This was, I'm taking all bias out of this. This had to have been everybody's favorite game of the postseason. Leading up into this, we had all games pretty much become blowouts or just not fun to watch. The games of the first round, where they were all hosted on campuses, just wasn't anything electric. There was nothing special about them. Besides the atmosphere, the games itself were very boring. The first playoff game in the quarterfinals with Boise State, Penn State wasn't all that special, kind of lacked the little bit luster, especially with Ashton Ginty in there. But Arizona State, Texas, this was the morning cap of those 3 games that were supposed to be played. It was just the Peach Bowl and the Rose Bowl for unfortunate events. But the Peach Bowl was electric. The best game of the day. This came to a lot of people's surprise. Texas came into it 2-touchdown favorite. Arizona State should not be in the playoffs based on the preseason. Texas should not be a 5 seed. They should be a team that has a bye. They coming off a tough loss to Georgia. They beat Clemson. Now they're looking to try and beat Arizona State, who they should, on paper, beat Arizona State. But ASU's been disrespected all season long. They come out with one of the best running back performances I have ever seen in my life. I think NFL, college, high school, I don't think I've ever seen or heard of a better performance than this. Cam Skattebo, 30 carries, 143 rush yards, 2 touchdowns, 8 receptions, 99 yards. And oh yeah, he made a 1-for-1 on passing, a 42-yard completion for a touchdown. This guy put the team on his back, and he played lights out, which he had to, because that second half was not looking good for ASU. They were down 16 points at one point, able to come back because of Cam Skattebo's performance. One of those touchdowns helping get that comeback to go. They scored the touchdown, got 2-point conversions on both of those touchdowns, so they tie it up. Bert Auburn, one of the best kickers in Texas history, was able to try for field goals, makeable ranges. He misses both of those. We go to overtime. We have a high impact first drive for Arizona State. They score. Texas coming down to their last play, fourth down. They make a play. They get a touchdown. They tie it up. First play of the second overtime. They score. They get the 2-point conversion. Now they're up 39-31. ASU, unfortunately, did throw an interception. Game over. Texas wins a thriller. One of an instant classics when it comes to college football in general, let alone just the playoffs. But ASU, lights out performance from Cam Skattebo. He said into the media he deserves to be known as the best running back in the nation, and he proved why. I mean, he shut up pretty much everybody who doubted him in this game. And for ASU fans, we know that he's been doing this all season long. I mean, ASU has had no talk about anything before that game. Cam Skattebo's been doing this all season long, and yet now the nation knows. So congrats to Cam. I mean, if that's your last college football game, you're going out as one of the ASU favorites, and that performance in the Peach Bowl has got to be the best performance ever in the Peach Bowl. So a lot on the line there. Texas survives. ASU gets to that bowl game that they shouldn't be. Also, the drama of the targeting call at the end of the fourth quarter, which could have changed everything, could have gave ASU a chance to kick a field goal, which, who knows, they probably would have missed based off of history of that season. They already had one blocked earlier in the game. But a lot of controversy over that targeting call that was not called, yet ESPN, Fox Sports analysts said all over that is a 100% a targeting call. I don't know what's targeting anymore. Looked like a clean and blatant targeting call, yet it wasn't called. So I don't know. A lot of drama, a lot of nail-biting performance from fans. I mean, I was skipping a beat, and I was all over the place emotionally. That drained me. That game drained me. But one of the best games of the season that deserves a number 2 spot in this year's season. All right, and we head to now number 1. We got number 2, Ohio State, versus number 3, Oregon, all the way back in week 7. This is the first matchup between these two squads as Big Ten opponents. The first of 2 matchups that we had this season. But Oregon was able to get the little bit of an upper hand in this one, a 32-31 win for the Ducks. It came down to a little bit of poor clock management on Will Howard and Ohio State. They had one timeout. They make a play. Howard runs through the middle, slides. The bad thing is he slid a little too late, left no time on the clock to call that timeout to try and go for the go-ahead game-winning touch or field goal. Ended up costing them. They lose 31-32. But this game had everything. Will Howard was playing great. Dillon Gabriel was matching him for everything. We had receiving cores going for over 100 yards each. We had running backs going for a bunch of yards and touchdowns. We had an onside kick recovery. We had 2-point conversions, failed and succeeded. We had missed field goals. We had made field goals. Anything you could think of in a football game, it was in this game. This game was electric all throughout. And to think that it was potentially a matchup that we would have seen later in the season was also very exciting. So Oregon getting this one, they met up later on in the Rose Bowl. Obviously, Ohio State got the upper hand on that and win the national championship later on in the year. But personally, I think this game paved the way for the Ohio State Buckeyes. I mean, a win like this Oregon looks like they're going to run the table, and they did. They went undefeated. They went to the Rose Bowl looking really good as Big Ten champions, but Ohio State had to come from behind. They didn't make it that Big Ten title game because of the loss to Oregon and the loss to Michigan. They had to host a game and win that one. They had to go out as underdogs against Oregon and win that one. And then once they got past that, it was easy cruising for the Buckeyes. The Buckeyes just looked really good. It was the kind of thing where if they didn't go out and beat Oregon in the Rose Bowl, who knows what happens? Maybe they took what they took away from this game, help implement things to work well with in the Oregon game in the Rose Bowl, and it worked. Ohio State comes out and it looked great, but a lot of storylines in that one because of Oregon going undefeated and ended up winning the Big Ten championship game. But with how great of a game, that deserves a number 1 spot in our college football season top 10 games. All right, guys. Well, hey, that will do it for this episode. This season, the college football as a whole, man, what an outstanding season we had. I mean, a season where it was like no other. I mean, we had teams changing conferences. We had some new teams in FBS level. We had NIL deals. We had an expanded playoffs. Everything that has changed college football forever and for the better in the long term. I mean, we had an outstanding season, and I think it's something that college football should be proud of. NIL deals, whether you like them or you don't. College football playoff expansion, whether you like them or you don't. Regardless, it's still college football. We all still have our favorite teams we follow, and moving forward, we're never going to change that. And I think this season is a test to the fans. I mean, the fans had a lot to adjust to, the teams had a lot to adjust to, and yet we still found a way to enjoy this season. So I miss it a lot. I can't wait to the 2025 season. I hope you guys enjoy this. If you guys have any suggestions on what you thought was the top 10 games of the year, whether I picked the wrong order or I forgot a couple of teams in there, let me know down in the comments. We'll have a good discussion about it. I'm curious on you guys' thoughts, but overall, appreciate you guys listening to this one. If you guys are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, go check out the YouTube channel because we make YouTube exclusive things that don't come out on audio versions. So go check out those episodes. Those are a lot of fun to make, edit, and watch, so you guys are gonna have a blast watching those. If you guys are new around here, make sure you guys hit the like and subscribe and the bell icon so you guys are notified when episodes like this do drop, because if you guys like this, I will make more episodes going in depth like this more often. So appreciate you guys listening to this one. Have an awesome rest of your week, and we'll see you guys later.